Hi there. I'm Bob on behalf of RadarBusters, and one of the most frequent questions that we field is, what's the best detector for the money? And, that doesn't necessarily mean the cheapest detector, but what is the greatest value? How much can you get out of a detector for a certain amount of coin? So we're going to go through what I regard as the top performing detectors in the industry. They're all wonderful and they're all exceptional in their own right, and there are places for every one of them. So I want you to take this in the context in which it's intended, which is to differentiate between the very best radar detector. So there is going to be no bad radar detector in this comparison. Okay, to save you guys a lot of time, we're going to cut right to the chase and let you know what we believe is the best radar detector on the market for the money. And that's the new Cobra Dual Pro 360. So before we get into the reasons why we believe that, I think it's going to be, people, the radar detector community is a pretty passionate group. But we're going to lay out the reasons, and I think most reasonable people are going to see that we come from a solid position. So we're going to start with some other detectors, and then we'll come back to this and let you know why we think this is relative to the others. Okay, again, none of them are bad detectors, and they each have their own special place. But again, overall, this is where we're going to recommend you to go. Okay, and to spice up the video here, we're actually also using the new Cobra Road Scout, but we're not using it to show how it is on the driving. You've seen some of that, or you will see some of those videos. On the other hand, you're going to see how it is when we work on the inside of the vehicle. So we're going to do a 2-camera review on this. Okay, we're going to do this comparative list from the most expensive detector down to the least expensive detector. And then in this case, we're going to start with the Escort Max 360C. Now, overall, I believe this is the best radar detector at any price on the market, okay? This is a dual antenna. It's got GPS, it's got Bluetooth, and it's got Wi-Fi connectivity. Basically, it has all of the latest and greatest features that you could potentially get in a radar detector. But beyond all that, the detector just has incredible sensitivity and performance. And this is the one I like to go to. The Escort Max 360C, like some of the other Escort detectors that are the newer ones that are coming out, including actually the Cobra units, is the Escort M1 dash cam. We love this dash cam. It goes in very easily and mates to the one cable. We can put a 128 gig card in this and get just hours and hours of loop recording. So just a fabulous piece to incorporate into this detector. But overall, I think this is the best at any price. It's just extremely well built. It's really a nice size. Front and rear arrows, great laser sensitivity. You get the benefits of the Escort Defender and the Cobra Aura database, which is now the combined ecosystem. And I don't have this powered on, but just an incredible detector. I found about 1 dB, nearly 1 dB away from the most sensitive detector, which is the Uniden R7. And in practical sense, that means up to about a 12% less alerting range than with the most sensitive detector. But by and large, and for all practical purposes, that's actually an inconsequential difference. In fact, that can be within the variation of a detector to detector. So overall, again, this is the Max 360C, but it is $649.95, puts it at the top of the list of the most expensive detectors. Okay, the next one we're going to feature is the Uniden R7. Now, without question, this is the most sensitive detector out there. It's about a dB more sensitive than the Escort Max 360C, and it does something really very well that I think is the best of any of the windshield mount detectors out there, which is the MRCD, MRCT detection. Now, there are not many locations that are actually using this. Parts of Canada are using it, and a few cities in the US, namely Chicago, Phoenix, they use MRCT. Now, most of them are in the fixed locations, at least in the US, so the GPS databases of the Defender Aura can alert to them. But natively for the detector to alert to MRCD and MRCT. I think this detector is the best, and you don't get punished with a lot of falses we have found from K-band systems. So, but the R7 is priced at $599.99, so that's about $150 more than the Cobra Dual Pro 360. The one thing I'm also going to let you know, and again, it's a great detector, a lot of good stuff inside it, but the build quality or the quality of materials just doesn't compare, in my opinion, to something like the Dual Pro or even the other Escort products. So again, another nice, I'll go to another nice feature of this detector is it's got a huge full color OLED screen, which is the largest of its kind in the industry. And for my eyes, when you get into the mid 50s, I certainly can appreciate the larger size of the display. So again, the laser sensitivity is not necessarily the greatest relative to the Dual Pro 360 or the Max 360C, but overall, the most sensitive detector, and one I don't hesitate to drive with either. So this also has dual antennas and has directional arrows and GPS as well, and their database is pretty good as well. So you get a lot of value for the money in this detector at $599.99. This is a great detector. I love driving around, and when I'm out here in Phoenix visiting, I definitely prefer to put this on my windshield because they do have not only MRCD and MRCT systems, they also have mobile red flex systems, which are super hard to detect, and this is one of the best detectors at grabbing that signal as well. So again, very highly recommended, and the price point is $599.99. $150 more basically than the Dual Pro 360. So we're going to move on to the next detector. The Redline EX is based on the predecessor of that detector, which was the Redline, and it was at that time the most sensitive radar detector. Some have called it the king of the radar detectors, but unfortunately time is going on and that detector really is less usable in today's environment, namely because of the collision avoidance systems that are out there and some of the newer exotic radars that are coming online. So so the Redline EX, especially in the international version and the US version, have the ability to detect MRCD, MRCT, and CAT. So unlike the R7, when you enable those capabilities, though, it can tend to false a lot on them, and Unit R7 actually does quite a bit better than that. But the detector here is at the $599.95 price point, so it's $150 more than the Dual Pro 360. And so what do you get for that difference? Well, you get the M3 platform, as I just said, which is completely stealth, truly completely stealth, so it's safe to drive in Virginia, or military bases, or truckers, parts of Canada, or anywhere else in the world where detectors are banned and can be detected with Spectra. So that's great. The downside, I'm going to just say, the downside of the Redline EX is its performance is inconsistent. So sometimes it performs and alerts extremely well, other times not so much. And we've tried to understand why that is, and we think the reason is because of the firmware and all the filtering. So it's trying to balance the extreme sensitivity and use some of the more conventional filtering techniques, since it's really an analog front end. Talking about the other detectors, the 360C and the 360 and the Dual Pro 360, just going back to them for a minute, that's the M5, M6 platform, which is fully digital. They have a lot more processing power to do serious signal processing. So that's why I think you'll find that the M5 and M6 are actually better choices. But then again, you have to jump up in price. So again, the Redline EX, I still like it. It's a wonderful piece, quick magnetic mount as well, GPS, photo enforcement, all the good stuff that you get. It doesn't have Wi-Fi connectivity. It does have Bluetooth, so you can use your Escort Live app to connect the detector, control the detector, and then get the alerts and share the alerts as any of these other detectors that we have from the Escort brand. Okay, now there's a lot of talk about the Max 360, the original Max 360, and I have some opinions about this. First off, this detector is $50 more than the Dual Pro 360 currently, so that's at $499.95. And what are you really getting for that $50 more? You're getting, in my opinion, an older detector. It's from a generation of Escort some years ago. and it's just a monster of a detector. The weight isn't so terrible, but it's just a large detector. It doesn't have the quick release magnetic mounts of the newer radar detector, so I think that's a disadvantage. And I just dual antenna and the GPS database. Look, it's great performance. If you have one, keep it. It's a great detector, but going out and buying one, and I think it's actually at the end of life, or will be soon. So I believe that's the case. So why make a jump into this detector unless you have a specific reason? Again, I think the Dual Pro at $50 less expensive is the better choice. Okay, magnetic. There may be some additional updates to this detector, which are going to be very compelling in the short term when we see this, if it actually makes it into this detector. Okay, so that's the 360. This has been out for a while, so I think for most of you know plenty about this detector. Now, the next in our list, there are actually two of them, and they are at the price point of $449 basically. And we're going to start with the Radenso Pro M. Radenso Pro M is a very cool and novel detector. It's the smallest high-performance detector of its kind. It also has, it's basically immune to radar detectors, truly immune to them. So that means you can safely drive with this in a truck, or in Virginia, or on military bases, or in parts of Canada or abroad where they use the Spectra detectors. X-band isn't as good on this detector, but K-band and Ka-band are exceptional. It can detect MRCD and GATSO when you turn it on, but we've also found it can tend to false from collision avoidance systems of cars to those systems, unlike the unit in R7 we just talked about. And when you enable filters to help cut down on that, we actually found that it missed some of these systems. So I think you have to balance the sensitivity and capability of detecting some of those more exotic radars with the balance of falsing of those things and filtering. And also, laser is not really that hot on this detector. So for $449, it's a popular piece. We're not going to really, we sell a lot of these, so they're a great detector. But there you go. That's the, this is a single antenna, I should also say too. So it does have GPS also. I'm just rattling some of these things off the top of my head. So they have a database, and it's got some nice driving and configuration capabilities insofar as fine-tuning the detector. And again, a great detector. One thing, again, I'll say about this too, is it has just a conventional 12-volt adapter here. So unlike some of the more advanced detectors like the R7 or the Escort series, which come with an RJ11 jack, which have a USB cable, most of them now do, for powering your smartphone, and a mute button to mute or mark locations. You really can't do that with this detector. So again, at $449, we're at the same price point, excuse me, of the Cobra Dual Pro 360. I think you're getting more value for that. Okay, the next detector at the same price point is at $449.95 is the IXC. And this, the IX is a very popular detector. That was based on the 9500 IX, which actually happened to be the biggest seller of probably of all time of any radar detector company, because it was the biggest seller for Escort. So they've improved on their design, which is called an M4 underlying radar platform, and they've added a number of dBs to it. So it's actually higher, and it runs neck and neck to the Redline EX. It's got the Wi-Fi connectivity. You can notice that by the C designation. It's got the same quick release magnetic mount as the other Escort detectors we're showing you here. And GPS, of course, and it can run with Escort Live, as all these Escort detectors I've been showing you can. And really a good detector. But again, it's a single horn. You don't get any of the benefit of the directional arrows that you do with the detectors here that have the dual horns. So this is a $449 at the same price point as the Pro M and the Dual Pro 360. One thing I want to say about the IXC, even that surprised Escort, was when I did an extensive series of Spectra tests against all of these detectors, I was not able to detect any appreciable distance on the IXC. And I would effectively rank or rate this detector as a stealth detector. It is that good, and that was a real surprise. So that's another great feature. You can feel safe driving with this detector in the areas where Spectre is used and potentially detectors are banned. So very important point I want to point out about the IXC. So there you go. We're going to move on to the next detector. Okay, I actually have 3 detectors at this price point. We have a last minute entry here because it was just recently announced, so we're going to include it in our list at the $449 price point, and that is the new Cobra Road Scout, which is a first of its kind production model that incorporates a radar detector and a dash cam in the same chassis. So that means you can get, in this case, 1080p by 30 using one power cable that'll get everything in one shot. You don't have to have multiple pieces of electronics on your windshield and that cable creep that oftentimes comes with that. This is a fascinating device because you're getting a very good radar detection performance from Cobra. Now this has its roots originally in Cobra's first digital signal processing, or DSP model, the 9200 BT, and it just so happens I have one here, I believe. So it's based on the Cobra 9200 BT, and it just so happens that I have that. This is Cobra's first DSP model, and it's just around the size. It almost looks like, you know, the little Pro M from Rodenso, but this was really the first. It was out here, very, very small, very cool. This was also originally priced over $400. And when I test drove it, I keep an open mind with Cobra. This unit actually did very well for the price point. I think actually it was a little bit high, and I think the price did come down since then. But anyway, this is based on that design, of course, with some of the newer technology incorporated, of course, the dash cam, what have you. And I was told by Cedar, the parent company to both Escort and Cobra, that this unit was spec'd for manufacturing at the level of a 9500 IX. And for those who are not familiar with the IX, 9500 IX, it was the most popular selling radar detector in Escort's history, which pretty much makes it the most popular selling detector in the entire industry, because Escort's pretty much the biggest one there is. So it's got good pedigree, so to speak, and we're very happy with this unit. It's got all the latest it's got all the latest capabilities that you come to expect from Escort, including IVT filtering, which is essential in today's driving environment. And what IVT does is it filters out a lot of those K-band collision avoidance systems. And if you get a detector and you're not really cognizant or aware of what those things are, and you have a lesser quality detector that doesn't have that filtering, your detector is likely going to go off all the time to the point that you're going to say, I don't want to drive with it, which is one of the biggest complaints we have with drivers. Either it doesn't alert enough, or it alerts too much. So finding that sweet spot of a balance is a difficult thing to do, and we're very happy with this. I've been driving with this, and I can see from the little encounters that I have, that I expect what they're saying is absolutely correct, that it's going to be in the realm of the 9500 IX once I take it, have full experience with all the different encounters. But the big showstopper for this sucker is the dash cam. Now, I could go into this detector again, but there's a lot of videos on RadarBusters which gets you through all of the aspects of the radar detector, including an introduction, all of its capability, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, video editing, and the Cobra radar. All that's already been detailed, so I don't want to take more time on this. But this is something else to consider. It happens to be at the same price point as the Cobra Dual Pro 360, which what we've been talking about. So it's a question of, do you want to have the extreme performance and then potentially pair that with an M1 dash cam? If you want to do that, you're spending a bit more money, about $649, which is where you would be with a Escort Max 360C by itself. Or you just take a little bit of a haircut in absolute performance and get a unit that has a dash cam in it. And the dash cam's value is, you're not going for how should I say? You're not going for an Oscar or a Pulitzer with this camera. The purpose of this camera really is to record safety events that go on. So if there's a traffic incident or something to that effect, somebody cuts you off or you have an accident, it could serve as a log. It does loop recording. It comes with a heavy-duty 16 gig SD card, which gives you a good number of hours of loop recording. It also has a built-in G sensor or accelerometer that you can set different thresholds. So you can set 1, 2, and 3, and the higher the number, the greater the force is required, basically, to trip an event. So the 1 would be the most sensitive, 3 would be the least sensitive. And the interesting thing is, when you plug this in, it can stay powered on. You can leave it powered on, provided you have your cigarette lighter or hardwired in where the power's there for up to 8 hours. And if you leave your car and you park it, and somebody backs into your car, this thing would automatically sense that jolt, so to speak, and then it would start recording that event. And then when you come back, if somebody did a hit and run on your car, backed into your car, and drove away, it's quite possibly not only would you see the individual or the vehicle, you could even very well get the license plate if you're fortunate enough, and then be able to do something on that. So this is what the dash cam is really designed to do. It's similar to how the Escort M1 runs, which is a $200 detector. With this loop recording, you can do 1, 3, and 5 minute increments in the loop. Very easy to get to, date and time stamped and things like that. It's very easy to get to these files. And again, all that's detailed in the videos that you'll see on RadarBusters' website about this detector, the Roach Scout in particular. So definitely worth consideration. And again, it's a question of, do you want the extreme performance and the ability to add a dash cam later, or you're willing to take a little bit of a haircut on the performance and get it all in one unit? I personally think this is going to be very popular with a large group of people. It's really quite wonderful that all this is together, and this is part of the Cobra Elite series, just like the Dual Pro 360 is, and we expect more great things coming out of Cobra and potentially Escort as new products come down the pike. So okay, this is the Roach Scout. We're going to move on now. And that's this detector, the Uniden R3. Now, I got to tell you, this has been the best-selling radar detector that RadarBusters has ever seen. This thing, we couldn't get enough of these units last year, in particular when these things were really selling like hotcakes. In fact, RadarBusters, I'll be completely candid with you, was doing up to 8 pallets of these detectors in a month. That was just unheard of and unprecedented in the history of RadarBusters. It's at the $400 price point, and it is still right up there with the R7 as the most sensitive radar detector out there. Now, there was a time that it was believed to be stealth to Spectre RDDs. We've actually determined that it isn't, but it's close. So, you know, the one thing about being nearly stealth as opposed to stealth truly, like the Pro M or the Escort Redline EX, is that if you're really close to a police officer who has a Spectre, like at a red light, or he's overtaking you, or something like that, or passing you on a 2-lane road, it's possible he'll get a blip, or a couple blips, and then he'll maybe turn around or get curious and see why that's the case. So still, by and large, you know, I drive in Virginia with this detector, and I've never had a problem either. But it's a great detector. Again, the build quality is you know, not at the level of the Escort, quite frankly, and there was a time that there were some real power cable failures that were higher than normal, but that has since been resolved to my understanding, and we still sell this detector. It's still a very popular detector, and in fact, this is a July 4th, we're coming up to the July 4th weekend. For a couple weeks, this detector is off by $50, and if you're watching this around the July 4th, 2019 time frame, this detector is actually going to be on sale for $50 less. So it's for a short period of time available at $349.95. First time, to my knowledge, this detector's ever been discounted, and so especially good value for those who are real fans. Got GPS, again, great MRCD, not quite as sophisticated or capable as the Uniden R7, but very similar. So red flex, MRCD systems are very good in this system. You don't get punished like the Escort products when you enable those things. They do a better job at it. And Uniden, like the R7, and they're making a lot of updates. They're very engaged with the community, and it's got a great following, and I really love this detector. Drove with it most of last year. But again, there are newer detectors out there. The next detector at the $399 price point, or $400 price point, is the Valentine one. Now, for the longest time, the Valentine one was my go-to detector. I think Mike Valentine and their wizards over at the Valentine Research have just built a fabulous detector. The thing that's unique about the Valentine is it's been around since about 1991. That is a staggering product run for any detector. And the way they do this is, Mike's philosophy is you only need one detector. Some of the other companies, they come out with radar detector better models, and you end up, and for good reason, I can understand this. There are newer technologies, newer challenges that come out, and so detector manufacturers have to respond. And by the way, there's this long-running theory that radar detectors are in bed with the radar companies, the police radar manufacturers. That it couldn't be further from the truth. Absolutely not the case. There is no conspiracy here. It's just the evolving of radar. In fact, pretty much today, the radar's been pretty consistent, with the exception of the MRCT and Redflex. The real challenges to the newer radar detectors, which is why you see newer models, is the collision avoidance systems on K-band. So I'm digressing for a moment. But Valentine, instead of coming up with new models, has chosen to keep the same design. Now, look, I'm just going to tell you, the model is very dated. There's only one knob. Getting into the programming is cumbersome. It doesn't have Bluetooth. You have to get a separate unit from Valentine, which they do offer, which gives you Bluetooth connectivity. They have a Valentine V1 connection, which allows you to modify and control the detector settings like you can with the Escorts, but you have to buy the separate module, and it doesn't have all the advanced GPS capabilities that are available. The one thing I love about the Valentine, it's still the greatest laser sensor in the world. It's been that way since the beginning of time, and I use it when I know there's going to be laser, and I absolutely want a no holds bar capability of being able to detect laser, particularly when I use it with veil or passive countermeasure, like an on-track laser shield and veil, where I don't have the benefit of a jammer. So I want to take every bit of advantage of the best sensitivity. Radar and laser is very good, but not at the level of the newer detectors like the R7 or the R3 and the Max 360 series, or again, the Dual Pro 360 from Cobra. So this is at the $400 price point. Great detector. It's got a loyal following. I still love it. But I think it's a little bit more dated, especially today in 2019, which is when this is being recorded. And so we're going to move on. Okay, working our way down to the last product we have before we get to the Dual Pro 360 is the Redenso XP. Now, I like this detector very much. It's different than it's a different manufacturing process than the Pro M. It's a little bigger, but still a great detector. It has great performance. It does actually detect MRCT as well as Redflex, but not to the level of the detectors that are really dedicated to have that capability. But overall, laser sensitivity actually is better than the Pro M. And it's got the GPS database. It's got all the great features. Redenso is a great company, and there are going to be new products coming from them. So keep an eye on Redenso. $349.95, I believe. So the relative to this detector, which is the least expensive detector, the Dual Pro 360 is $100 more. So we've pretty much run down the list of what I regard as the best detectors currently available. And now we're going to go to why I believe the DP360 from Cobra is the best value on the overall for the money. Okay, now we're going to save the best for last. This is the Cobra DP360. Okay, now as many of you already know, this is a Beltronics GT 360, which was short-lived, that they decided, and I think smartly so, to put this in the Cobra brand as opposed to the Beltronics brand. I think more people are familiar with the Cobra brand. It's actually very popular at truck stops and certain retail locations, but historically Cobra frankly hasn't been at the top of the performance. We're going way back with Cobra, but their detectors for a very short period of time used to cause other detectors to false in the nature of their scanning. Didn't necessarily mean the detector was bad. It was just that they were, not considered about the impact that they would have on other detectors, which, really was an annoying thing. But that's long history, like 15 years or more. So Cobras are today, especially in the Dual Pro 360 and the new Road Scout, which we've been talking about in the other videos that we've done, is just an exceptional detector. The Cobra Dual Pro 360 is one of two new products in Cobra's Elite series The other being the Road Scout, which is the most innovative detector I've seen probably in a decade or more, which is an integrated dash cam and radar detector. That's also at the same price point, by the way, the Road Scout at $449, and you can visit RadarBusters. We have an extensive amount of videos and tutorials on what to expect and how to use that detector, and RadarBusters was given the exclusive on their product launch, so make sure you give a visit to RadarBusters.com to see those videos. I think you'll find them fascinating. So you're also going to find videos, of course, on the Dual Pro 360, so you can give them there and you'll see more detail as we get into more specifics with this radar detector. But insofar as why do I feel this is the best detector on the market overall for the money, okay, it's because it's got the same great capabilities of the Max 360, which is on its way out, very large. I talked about that already. And the Max 360C, the real difference from the 360C is that it's got Wi-Fi connectivity. But I'm going to let you in on a secret. You know, there is a value for that, and maybe now as more cars come with the Wi-Fi hotspots built in, that'll be a nicer, more usable feature. But at this point in time, it's still, I think, on the early side of it. So I don't use the Wi-Fi capability. If I want to get to the phone, if I want to use the phone or I want to control the detector, I'll use the Bluetooth connectivity, which of course this detector has. It has the same quick magnetic mounts that the other Escorts do, so they're interchangeable. It's got you know, what was the Escort, now it's the Cobra Smart Cord, which is the push button for marking locations, USB cable as well. It's got the RJ11 jack. It's also got the data cable where you can actually take it to a computer and update the firmware for both driving, GPS database, photo enforcement database, and or firmware updates. Full color OLED. It's basically dual antenna, of course, directional arrows. You can do basically all the kind of configurations. And again, it's $50 less than the Escort Max 360, a heck of a lot smaller than the Max 360, and right up there with the performance. It's the same M5, M6 platform. And when I first heard that Cobra was going to take this, I was like, wow, this is going to be a really huge directional change for the brand. And I think it's now looking at it. We've been driving with this detector since December of 2018. One thing I like about that is that means Escort's taken its time. They haven't been rushing these products out. And given that it already has had some life briefly as the GT360, this is a very, very mature detector. So when you add it all up, all the features I mentioned, basically think of it as a 360C without the Wi-Fi. You're saving how much? $200 off of the detector, and you're basically getting in there. Or to look at it another way, you're spending $50 more than the, or $100 more than the XP, or $50 more than the unit in R3 when it's not on sale. So just look at how much value you get. You get the all-digital platform M5, M6, superior, just advanced DSP and supercharging of the digital signal processing. And Escort's coming out with updates, and they're just really engaged. This detector is going to have a lot of life to it with the firmware. And given that there's cross-compatibility with the Escort Defender database and the Aura database, to me, it's a no-brainer. This is the best detector for the money on the market. There's no question in my mind. $449. RadarBusters, depending on the time you're watching this, we're going to be able to start selling this. We're going to be one of the exclusive early dealers or retailers of this product, which will be around the end of the third week of June of 2019. So if you're seeing it around that time, you can certainly get a pre-order on. Also, if you're watching this video after that time frame, it's readily available at RadarBusters.com. And if you want to see more videos as we get into the specifics of this radar detector, you can visit the site, and all that stuff is there. Now, one thing I want to throw out there, it's a little bit of a plug, mind you, why I believe RadarBusters is the best source to get these products. First, they have some special programs like a VIP discount program where you get special inside information and occasionally some discounts on detectors that you can get that are not available to just a casual user who just visits the site. So, and we have the best pre and post sale support, and it's personalized. So you call, you're going to get to one of our support representatives, and if you're lucky, you're going to get to Mike. He's just a wonderful person. He goes out of his way to make sure your ownership experience is a good one. And it's only at RadarBusters. We got great pricing. We do price matching against authorized dealers, and we have some special programs that no other dealer has right now. So be sure to come and visit RadarBusters. We want to thank you for watching. Give us a thumbs up, please, and subscribe. And if you would if you have a Facebook presence or other social media, we would really appreciate you spreading the word about RadarBusters and the detectors we've featured. You helping us be successful is going to help us continue offering, doing tests and doing more research and keeping current with the latest detectors, and of course giving you the great service that our customers have come to expect over all the years. So again, thanks for watching. If you have any other questions, certainly you feel free. Again, I know there's a lot of opinions on radar detectors, pretty passionate group. But if you give us a call, we'll be happy to answer or field any of your questions. So again, wrap up, Dual Pro 360, look no further. Take care.